plane that disappeared and never traced. Since the Wright brothers made their maiden voyage in the early 20th century, the aviation industry has made tremendous strides toward reaching its current level of success. However, the sector has also been witnessing to a number of strange occurrences that have played a significant role in shaping history, such as the disappearance of an airplane while it was in flight. As a result of some of these instances, hundreds of passengers on board the flights went missing. Number 6. The stolen Boeing 727-233. In 2003, a Boeing 727-233 with the registration number N844AA started taxiing along the runway at 4 de Fevereiro Airport in Luanda, Angola. The crew was unable to communicate with the tower, therefore the tower was unable to communicate with the crew. The maneuvering of the medium-sized plane near the runway was followed by its takeoff without clearance. After that, the jet went in a westerly direction over the ocean, turned off its lights, and stopped communicating on its transponder. It has never been seen again since then. According to an article published in Air and Space magazine, there were 2 personnel on board, neither of whom was thought to have been capable of piloting the aircraft. The FBI and the CIA searched the entire world, but they were unable to find either the jet or its crew, thus the search was eventually terminated. The entire event has remained a mystery up till the present day. Number 5. Pakistan International Airlines Flight 404, 1989. The disappearance of Pakistan International Airlines Flight 404 in 1989 was a blow to Pakistan's aviation industry. The flight was operated by Pakistan International Airlines. There are 54 people missing after a Fokker F-27-200 Friendship aircraft and its pilot vanished under mysterious circumstances. Since it was first put into service in 1962, the airplane had logged approximately 44,524 hours in the air. This made it an older model of aircraft. Following its flight from the nation's capital, Islamabad, the Fokker F-27 aircraft had just touched down at the Gilgit airport and was now transporting a group of passengers back to Islamabad. At 7:40, the pilot of the flight carried out a routine radio communication, which turned out to be the very last message that was received from the aircraft. After some time, the flight disappeared from radar, and no further communication from the crew was ever received. It was decided to send in the Pakistani military to look for the missing person, but their efforts were fruitless. It is presumed that Pakistan International Airlines Flight 404 went down in the Himalayas, more specifically in the area around Nanga Parbat, and that all of the passengers and crew perished in the accident. Number 4. Skyways Avro York Disappearance, 1953. The Avro York GHFA, which belonged to Skyways Limited and had 4 engines, vanished over the Caribbean Sea when it was its route from the United Kingdom to Jamaica with a military contingent, the families of those troops, and 6 crew members. The airplane had been manufactured in 1946, and in November of 1952, it had been subjected to a comprehensive inspection and repair. It had been granted a certificate of airworthiness 3 days prior to the flight that would ultimately end in tragedy. Skyways Limited was in charge of the Avro York's flight operations, but the Lancashire Aircraft Corporation was the aircraft's owner. On February 1, 1953, the Avro York aircraft took off from Stansted Airport in the United Kingdom on a voyage that was scheduled to be utilized by the British Air Ministry as a military trooping flight. This was the beginning of a journey that would end in tragedy. The flight took off and made its first stop at Lodges Field, which is located on the island of Azores in Portugal. After that, the airplane took off again at 23:25 to make its next stop at Gander Airport, which is located in Newfoundland. A few hours after liftoff, the aircraft started transmitting distress communications to flight control at Gander Airport, and shortly after that, it vanished from the radar. There were desperate searches conducted, but none of them turned up any results. The disappearance of the aircraft and all 39 people aboard it occurred under unexplained circumstances that, to this day, have never been adequately explained. Before moving ahead, please like this video and subscribe to this channel for our future updates. Number 3. Air France Latecoere 631 Disappearance, 1948. At 14:50 Greenwich Mean Time on July 31, 1948, the Air France plane Latecoere 631 took off from an airport at Fort-de-France, the capital of Martinique. It was headed for Port Etienne in French West Africa, where it was scheduled to arrive at 1 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time on August 1, 1948. The plane took off with a total of 52 people on board, 40 passengers and 12 crew members. However, at midnight, a radio station in the United States received many mayday signals emanating from the aircraft, which indicated that the jet may have been involved in an accident. A mission of search and rescue was initiated, and aircraft from both Air France and the French Air Force were utilized in it. The United States Air Force requested assistance with the operation from the United States Coast Guard, which responded by sending a cruiser from the USCGC along with 6 Boeing B-29 Superfortress aircraft. After several days of searching, pieces of the plane's wreckage were found scattered throughout the Atlantic Ocean. Some of these pieces were found 1,570 nautical miles away from Puerto Rico. The search for any possible survivors was eventually called off, and it was determined that all of the passengers and crew had perished in the crash, making it one of the worst aviation catastrophes in the history of France. Following the accident that occurred in 1948, Air France removed all of its Latecoere 631 aircraft from service. The reason for the collision has not been established as of yet. Number 2. Airborne Transport DC-3 Disappearance, 1948. In the aviation sector, 1948 was a disastrous year, with another mystery disappearance at the conclusion of the year. The Douglas DST aircraft, which belonged to the Airborne Transport Aviation Company, vanished shortly after takeoff. Despite frantic search activities, the whereabouts of all crew members and passengers were unknown at the time of the inexplicable tragedy, which created considerable fear. The plane took out on its disastrous journey from San Juan, Puerto Rico, on December 21, 1948, with the target of Miami, Florida. However, the plane suffered a few technical issues when it first took off. The landing gear warning light was out, and the aircraft batteries were both low on water and drained. Because of the low batteries, the plane radio was unable to function correctly. The plane's pilot, Robert Lindquist, was aware of the plane's terrible condition but chose to ignore it, refusing to pause the flight for several hours. The jet took off at 22:03, but lost communication with flight control centers in both San Jose and Miami shortly after. At 4:30 p.m., the aircraft's last transmission was received, with the pilot reporting that he was 50 miles south of Miami. The plane and its passengers were never located, and the occurrence was one of many linked to the enigmatic Bermuda Triangle. Number 1. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, 2014. The 2014 loss of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 was the most recent aviation disaster. The incident, which involved a Malaysia Airlines Boeing 777-200ER aircraft, drew widespread international attention. The plane took off from Malaysia's Kuala Lumpur International Airport and was bound to China's Beijing Capital International Airport. The plane was carrying 239 individuals, including 227 passengers from 15 nationalities and 12 staff members. On March 2, 2014, at around 0:42, a Boeing 777 took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport on a journey to Beijing, China, that was planned to take 5 hours and 34 minutes. At 1:19, the airplane and air traffic control had their last verbal connection. The aircraft then vanished from both the military and secondary radars. The crew never transmitted any distress signals, and there was very little cloud cover in the area, therefore the disappearance was strange. Malaysia Airlines afterwards issued a press release announcing the flight's disappearance. Later, a massive search and rescue operation was initiated, involving Malaysia, China, and Indonesia, among other countries. The search effort grew to be the greatest and most costly in aviation history. Despite millions of dollars in search and rescue efforts, neither the plane nor the people on board were ever found. What do you think about our video? Please let us know in the comments area below. If you enjoyed this video and would want to hear from me again, please subscribe and turn on the notification before leaving. Thank you for watching us.